Work, work, Angelica, work, work, Eliza, and Leviticus 5:17. The Schuyler sisters. Oh my god, hey! Welcome back to my Stagey YouTube channel. If you are seeing my face for the first time, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre. This is not my usual Stagey YouTube channel setup. I am not at home, I am at my boyfriend's house because I'm on my way to Edinburgh for the 2022 Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which I'm going to be at from Monday. I am so excited to bring you lots of content. Stay tuned for all of that. However, before we get there, there is a pressing and fascinatingly bizarre theatrical news story that we have to talk about. So if you don't know who I am an independent theatre critic and pundit and content creator based here in the UK, and I review shows that I get to go and see, and I talk about news and theatre drama and events happening worldwide. If that sounds like the kind of video content you would be interested in on YouTube, feel free to subscribe to my Stagey channel for plenty more coming very regularly. And feel free to go and find me across social media. I'm at Mickey Joe Theatre on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I don't have LinkedIn. Should I have LinkedIn? I don't think I need LinkedIn. So apologies if the lighting and the sound quality are not up to my usual YouTube standards today. I couldn't wait any longer to talk about this story. I'm already quite late to the party. I've had so many comments and messages from people asking me to break down and explain what has happened with this particular news story. It started unfolding while I was out of the country, which seems to be a pattern lately. Every time I leave the country to go on holiday, something crazy happens in the theatre world. Evidently, I just need to stay in the UK. So this time, the theatre drama is about Hamilton, but not the production that you know. What's happened here is a church in Texas called the McAllen Church has staged an illegal, unlicensed performance of Hamilton, but not only that, they have rewritten the show's lyrics and added in material to reframe it with a religious, fundamentalist, homophobic at times message, which we absolutely hate to see. I know in these videos I'm very forthcoming with my thoughts and my opinions. I'm also British and just a little bit emotionally repressed, so if it feels like I am not passionate enough with rage about this topic, let me just tell you that I have been seething ever since I found out about it. To reframe a Broadway musical with young performers with a homophobic message is just one of the most sinister and heinous things I could possibly think of. I'm actually sitting down for the second time to film this video because I got too cross and too warm while filming it the first time, but if I prefer anything I said in that one, I'm just gonna slot it in right here. From what I could tell from the little of this show that I could bring myself to actually watch clips of, it reframed the final message of Hamilton as welcoming Jesus into your life to deliver you from sin, including, but not limited to, homosexuality. Obviously, I'm being incredibly tongue-in-cheek because this is a deplorable, awful, heinous message that I no way endorse. If it's not clear to you, I'm coming to you right now from my boyfriend's house. I am not about inserting homophobic rhetoric into any piece of musical theatre. I think for a very long time, musical theatre has been a safe space, especially for the LGBT community, but all sorts of diverse, marginalised groups within society, and so I take such issue and I have such rage for anyone taking this material and taking musical theatre and using this as a vessel to spread ignorance and prejudice and hatred and intolerance and homophobia in the name of religion, in the name of an allegedly omnibenevolent deity. But we're not going to get into an entire religious debate right now. Just let it be known that this is not something I stand for, and I was incensed with rage when I found out that this had happened. My whole thing is that queer people and queer kids exist everywhere, in every country of the world, in every town and city of the world. There are queer people, that's just a fact. There will have been queer kids in this community who saw that Hamilton was happening locally to them and were like, oh my gosh, and maybe went to go and see this or saw it getting live streamed and will have been impacted and reached by this horrible, pervasive, nefarious messaging, which I just think is morally unconscionable. So to explain what's happened here, let's first have a bit of a conversation about how licensing works. So when a show premieres, usually on Broadway, it will then close and maybe tour, or tour while it's still open on Broadway if it's very successful, like Hamilton is. And then usually after the production has closed and after that tour has closed, a license will be made available for other groups to perform it. Amateur groups or youth theatre or schools or even religious institutions. And a company will act as a rights holder like MTI, Music Theatre International, or Joseph Weinberger. There are lots of them. And what they do is they act as the middleman, where they distribute the licensing rights to groups who can apply for them, who can hire them, and will pay a percentage of the show's profits, usually, in order to perform it for a limited time. And what they are hiring can be any number of things. It can be actual paper scripts and scores for the musicians. It can be rehearsal backing tracks. It can be elements of the original promotional materials and design. There can sometimes even be set pieces if you're doing particular shows, like you need to hire a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang car. That's something that can be made available. But essentially what you are paying for is the legal right to perform that material and to charge for ticket sales. And if a group doesn't do all these things and doesn't apply for the license, then the production is being staged illegally. I feel like there's a lot more dialogue happening about this and a lot more awareness of this right now because of the recent controversy with the Bridgerton musical and the Netflix lawsuit. More on that in a little bit. But in any case, I feel like theatre fans are definitely more aware of this as a concept than perhaps they used to be. And what's happened with this church performing Hamilton is a license was not obtained. And we know this for a fact because a license does not yet exist for Hamilton. Hamilton is still doing very good business on Broadway and with multiple tours and worldwide. They have not yet granted an amateur license. There is no way that amateur groups, schools groups, anyone other than the Broadway and touring companies of Hamilton has a legal right to perform the show. So if you're seeing Hamilton performed at a high school somewhere, that is not being done legally. Now, I said we would come back to the Bridgerton Netflix lawsuit. If you're not aware of this, I did another video about this recently. Feel free to go and watch that one, explaining all of the drama happening there. Essentially, TikTok creators Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear have together written an unofficial Bridgerton musical. It was very big on TikTok, it blew up, it became this viral social media sensation. It then surprisingly won the Grammy Award for Best New Musical Theatre Album, and then subsequently they have started staging public performances for profit. And this is where Netflix has drawn a line in the sand and said that they are now infringing on Netflix's right as the copyright holder for Bridgerton, because Abigail and Emily do not own the rights to Bridgerton as a concept. They cannot be monetizing it in the way that they are. Now, I've seen a lot of people saying in the comment section of my video that this is going to give way to other people trying the same thing with intellectual property and trying to just adapt it without obtaining the rights. And I would like to stress that is not what's happened here with this production of Hamilton. They have not been spurred on by this Bridgerton Netflix situation, because they were doing this long before Bridgerton was even a thing on Netflix. Some of the people looking into this and investigating this, like the brilliant Onstage blog, who have done a brilliant write-up of this entire situation, go and read that after you watch this video, have uncovered clips of a previous production from the same church of Beauty and the Beast in 2019, where, you guessed it, Belle introduces the Beast to Jesus. It's in the second act scene where he gives her the library and she's reading to him from the books, and I guess it's the Bible, and she starts telling him about the love of Jesus and how he can be his savior. And again, I would like to stress that I find the insertion of religious indoctrination and propaganda into other people's writing to be just deplorable. But I would like to say, with my tongue planted firmly in one side of my cheek, that at the very least, that Beauty and the Beast version seems like dramaturgically a less heavy-handed way of getting Jesus into the plot. Like, fair enough, she just reads to him from the Bible, like, rather than it being this Arthurian legend, she tells him about Jesus. That's not the worst rewrite that I've ever heard. It's certainly better than the ones in Hamilton. To give you some insight about the actual changes they made in Hamilton, obviously they removed a lot of the swearing and the language that the church did not like. They also changed a little bit in the epilogue where Eliza is talking about the orphanage. She's talking about the orphans and how she introduced them to Jesus. There's a section with her and Hamilton on the bench, and she's encouraging him to accept Jesus into his life, and he gets saved right before it's quiet uptown. The whole messaging of the show and its takeaway has been reframed as accepting Jesus into your life to help you escape the tides of sin, which really doesn't pair well with the story of Hamilton. It doesn't really work as a message to just tack on the end of that story. So I guess they chose Hamilton because of its success and its popularity as a vehicle to insert their nefarious and villainous and prejudicial messaging into rather than thinking, oh, this pairs really well with this. Like there aren't enough religious musicals that you could have chosen, like put on a production of Godspell or something. And the most awful part is that there was just this entire sermon on the end, which is where the homophobic messaging came into it. I didn't even know what they did with Say No to This, like, what do you do with that? To give you some insight into this church, they describe themselves as a Bible-based, spirit-filled, non-denominational family of believers, which is one of the most terrifying collections of words I've ever heard. Now, details about this production first emerged on TikTok and subsequently came over to Twitter and has spread from there into mainstream news and has caught the attention of the actual production of Hamilton. And I have been very impatiently waiting for them to issue a statement because I think in a circumstance like this, where homophobic rhetoric is being attached to the show, you have an instant obligation to your LGBTQ plus fans to advocate on their behalf and to speak out against it having been utilised in this way. This kind of just feels like any brand's worst nightmare for it to be tethered to prejudicial messaging. So I was surprised we didn't see a statement sooner, but I do also know that the legal ramifications of these things can be very serious and they have to make sure all their ducks were first in a row before issuing anything to media outlets. And I'm also aware that in the US especially, the relationship with the church is a different one. I think were this any other non-religious group performing this, it would have got shut down a lot faster and with a lot less restraint, and legal action might have been pursued more swiftly. I think legal action against the church is a little bit of a harder pill for people to swallow. I feel like the US generally has a much closer relationship with the church as an institution between that and its legal framework than at least the United Kingdom does. But the powers that be at Hamilton obviously have subsequently become aware of this and released a statement via a representative, whose name was Shane Marshall Brown. They said, Hamilton does not grant amateur or professional licenses for any stage productions. As we have said, you should not be seeing any other replica or non-replica productions of Hamilton that aren't produced by the producers of Hamilton, and did not grant one to the Door Church. I'm pretty sure I saw a leaked DM on social media where the Door Church tried to claim that they had permission to stage the show from Lin Manuel Miranda's lawyers. This was obviously a lie. That's a commandment, right? That you're not supposed to do that? I'm pretty sure that's a commandment. False witness. Thou shalt not bear false witness. I remember primary school. Officials behind the musical were not aware of the unauthorised staging until the day after the church's first of 2 scheduled performances and sent a cease and desist letter. So the church were meant to do 2 performances. After the first one has happened, Hamilton finds out about it. Now this is where I was initially not really pleased with this statement, because after a conversation with the church, Hamilton allowed them to continue with their planned second performance with some conditions, including that the show would not be live streamed, recorded, or shared on social media in photo or video form. Now on the one hand, I feel like it's the church, so they don't want to come down on them too hard. It was also a lot of young people in the cast who have obviously worked very hard to rehearse and perform this show, so I feel like possibly they just didn't want the optics of being the bullies shutting down the show and clamping down on creative freedom. However, I have a huge issue with them allowing this to go onwards given the homophobic messaging. They have said in a subsequent statement to CNN that they were not aware of the extensive changes to the show or that there would be a sermon at the end when they allowed Saturday's performance to move forward. If that is the case, then I can be slightly more understanding. They go on to say, we have reserved all of our rights and are considering how to proceed based upon what we've learned. Sue them! Sue the church! The Hamilton family stands for tolerance, compassion, inclusivity, and certainly LGBTQ plus rights. I like that they have said that specifically and explicitly because they do have a responsibility to advocate for their queer fans. We are in the process of reviewing the unauthorised changes made to the script to determine further action. My whole thing is, even if there weren't changes made to the script, this would still have been an illegal staging of the show. Even if they had just done it completely in replica and not changed anything about the script or the lyrics, it would have been still illegal. I think adding this insidious layer of religious indoctrination is only the poisonous icing on top of the illegal cake. I don't see how anything other than a course of serious legal action would be suitable in this instance. After the production of Hamilton released their statement, Lin Manuel Miranda himself also made a statement, which you would expect because he is so tethered to the Hamilton brand. He is its writer and its original star, and he is very well known. His reputation is inherently tied to Hamilton. He is very much a star because of this show, and has spoken very openly and publicly previously on social media, so you would expect to hear from him in this situation, which we did. He said, "Grateful to all of you who reached out about this illegal, unauthorized production. Now lawyers do their work." Goody. He then added, "And always grateful to the Dramatists Guild, who have the back of writers everywhere, be it your first play or your 50th. And he then linked to dramatistsguild.com for more info on your rights as a writer. And it's great that he is sharing this resource and talking about this and talking about the important work that they do. I would have loved for him to also speak specifically to the LGBTQ+ fans of his and of Hamilton and of that particular Texas community. I think that would have been a really important acknowledgement to make in this message, but he was quite brief with what he said. And again, once we're into a legal situation, it's difficult to say too many things. This is what we're seeing simultaneously in the Bridgerton situation, where we haven't yet seen any kind of an opposing statement from Barlow and Bear. I think similarly here with Hamilton, they have to be very careful with the messaging that they release and with what is now said, because they are hopefully pursuing a course of legal action. And that is the situation of the story as it has been. We haven't heard any more from this particular church. We don't know what exciting show they are planning to do next. We don't know what is going to happen with them in Hamilton. I will be watching this very closely. I am concerned it may just get dropped. I think the financial and moral power of the church is not to be trifled with. I am hoping, just in terms of how important it is to advocate on behalf of the queer community, that Hamilton pursues this to the fullest extent that it can. Because it would set a very dangerous precedent if they didn't, if religious groups worldwide could be allowed to reframe theatrical narratives with their own perspectives. One of the things I love the most about Broadway is that the majority of its stories are uplifting its themes of inclusivity and love and acceptance and tolerance. I think for queer people in communities where they are already feeling marginalized, for religious institutions to now feel emboldened to misrepresent those artistic works and those kind of narratives would be triggering and awful. Hopefully Hamilton can lead the way in standing against this nefarious institution. And I say with more than a little bit of fear in my brain, let me know what you think about this in the comments section. Obviously, we may all have different perspectives on religion. What I am not here for is any kind of a differing perspective on the rights of LGBTQ+ people. That is not up for debate in this comment section. If I see any kind of homophobia, it is just going to get removed, because this is my corner of the internet and I can do that if I want to. And I do. But do let me know your thoughts about this. I'll be fascinated to hear what everyone has to say. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, if enjoyed is the right word for this bizarre and at times difficult story. If you want to see some more comparatively fun stagey content from me on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Feel free to give me a super thanks for this video if you really enjoyed it, or you can head over to patreon.com/MickeyJoeTheatre to support me as a content creator and gain access to some exclusive photo and video content. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey. Thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!